Hello, greetings. Welcome to another edition of Prove All Things. I'm your host, Mike James. We have our co host who will be coming back next year, Jeff Reed. Again, I say next year because it's less than a month away. So, Jeff Reed's in the background for us doing all the technical things today to get this show running. And a couple of announcements before we introduce our guest for today. I have my monthly cell group meetings this Sabbath. So I meet with some folks out there who don't have a local congregation. We're going to meet in the morning, roughly around 9 a.m. this Sabbath, and we'll be dealing with folks in the East and the Midwest at that time. And then later in the afternoon, around 1:30 Pacific Standard Time, we'll get our meeting together with some of the cell folks out in the mountain and western time zones. So that happens this weekend. Again, if you want to be part of that monthly cell group meeting, just send me an email to mhjames6043 at yahoo.com. There it is up on the screen, and I can get you connected to the monthly cell group meeting. And also remember, I have a monthly Bible study. Again, send me an email, and that happens on the first Friday of the month around 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. Monthly Bible study. We are into the nature of God right now. That's our new study. All right, that takes care of my announcements for today. So, without further ado, I want to introduce our guest for today. He's been here before. Interesting spelling of the last name there, Lucen Hyde. Lucen Hyde. I hope I said it correctly this time. Bill will correct me if I'm wrong. But Bill, I know many people are familiar with you, but some people are not. So please give us a brief introduction and tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Hey, it's great to be with you, Mike, and with everybody in the audience here live and in living color on Prove All Things. And indeed, I'm Bill Lucenhyde. Used to have the umlaut, little dots over the U, but we dropped that during World War II because it just looked a little too scary, little too, little too German. So anyway, I live here in beautiful Montana. My ancestors were original pioneers here before it was even a state. So I'm here in the beautiful Treasure State. And I've been in the Church of God for about 50 years now. God started calling me when I was about 14 years old, listening to the radio, Garner Ted Armstrong on KLAC 570 AM on the dial, and came into church when I was just graduated from high school. I'm the only member of my family. I'm the president of a financial firm. We do mutual fund management, about $35 million assets under management. So I'm an expert on things financial, and I've counseled literally thousands of people and put on workshops and seminars and different things like that. I did radio for many years, large radio stations, sort of like Dave Ramsey, talking about financial wisdom and all types of things, whether it was debt or budgeting or the like, investments and that type of thing. So I love being an educator in this particular field. And so that's
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic, Bill. Very good. I think we're going to talk finances today. And, when you think about that subject, a lot of people don't connect it to the Bible. But surprisingly, as you read through the Bible, it has a lot to say about finances. In the parables, you get some information. Tithing is all about finances. And in order to help less fortunate people, we need to be money managers, wise money managers. And I think it's very important. I've come to understand that. I remember in my early 20s when I first started working for the government, my dad told me they were just coming out with those 401 401k programs. And my dad said, "You better get into that."
Right,
And I'm so glad he told me to,
right.
because I stayed in it 33 plus years in the government, and it's really helping me right now in life. So let's begin, especially for young folks out there who are just getting into the workaday world, Bill, and they're not familiar with the differences between stocks and bonds and mutual funds. Can you just kind of, you know, give us a baseline
Right,
of different things people can invest in,
right.
and why this might be better than that, or if you've got longer time to invest, why this is more suggested than that. Get just a little bit about that, the baseline, Bill.
I was gonna, those were points I definitely was gonna want to cover today,
Okay.
and without a doubt. But I will actually go backtrack a little bit. Yes,
Sure.
the Bible does speak a lot about finances, and God is interested to see how do you handle power. He doesn't want to entrust you with all the, powers that you would have as a spirit being, right? Unless you're trustworthy in the more temporal things. And so God is watching how you manage power. That could go for your physical health. It goes for your finances and your family and your relationship with God and all that. So He's watching how do you manage power. All those things are power, and we can go on to so many scriptures about that. Parable of the talents and the like. But
Yeah, you know, when you say power, that just struck me. I haven't thought of it that way. When you talk about your health, the energy of your body is power. I haven't, thought of it like, and then money can be power too. You can do great, good things with money. So yeah, that's a great way of looking at it. I like that. Yeah.
it's just he's watching how we manage. All right, so it's important to him, and so uh, the heart is desperately wicked, right? Who can know it? And it definitely goes on in with this area of money and with money. And again, I've dealt with literally with thousands of people in counsel over the years. Um, Vanity, lust, and greed. Boy, it really does manifest itself with finances and money and the like. So we've got to be aware of this and that, become non-emotional. We need to be non-emotional when it comes to money. And somebody just wrote that time money represents time, and that's absolutely true too.
Yeah, that's a nice quote there. I like that from
It's
Life
absolutely true.
Lessons.
And first step. So we'll go through kind of a step by step what everyone should be doing. I don't care if you got $20 million or 20. Okay,
Okay.
this is the process. There's a certain process, and the first thing is you've got to know where your money is going. Okay, you need to have a budget. If you're a company, you need to have a budget. You need to know where your expenses are, what your margins are, and the like. And so, in a sense, for your personal finances, you need to run it like a business. You need to know how much is coming in. You need to know how much is going out into the different areas for food and for insurance and for the mortgage and for the car payment and these types of things. And so you've got to know where your money is going. And actually, I'll tell you what, we are in a crisis of retirement savings. Okay. And young people are in debt way over their head. They misspent with college loans, and they didn't go to East Los Angeles College like I did at night, right? Well, I worked full time, no student loan debt, right? But a lot of debt with young people and with older people. They just didn't save. They weren't frugal. They spent it as it came in, and we're facing a retirement crisis that's just unbelievable. And people are just going to like something like 70% of people are just going to be relying on their meager Social Security, and Social Security is only funded at about 70% of the listed payouts. I mean, that's in jeopardy within about the next 10 years, right? Well, hopefully they can put a fix in there, but there's going to be some tough times for a lot of people. So we need to be aware of this. And so,
When
step
you
one,
say when you say budget, Bill, I think of, all the expenses I have right now, but you said something there about college loans, buying a new car down the road. How do you factor in, like if you got a kid who's a teenager now, like I do, or you got a couple of old vehicles, you're going to need a new one at some point. Can you factor into that budget today those types of things, or how do you deal with things that are coming out in the future?
Right. Well, you know what? I advocate people, number one, take a car, right? Buying a car that's 2 years old is and still under warranty. All right, low miles. A lot of depreciation is gone from that. I mean, probably a good third of the cost of a car is dropped. But then when you pay that car off, hang on to it till it drops, and so you don't have a payment anymore. Start putting that payment into a savings account for the next car. There's always constant depreciation when you own a house. There's going to be expenses. You can't just say, "Well, everything's working fine today." No. Listen,
Yeah.
every 10 years that water heater is going to go out, the stove, refrigerator, all that. The roof's going to go every 20 years. You got to have paint. So you need to have reserves, we'll call it against depreciation, and calculate that into your budget. You should have a reserve account for your depreciation, if you will, and the like. And in fact, what I recommend is that everyone should have about 6 months' salary in a money market fund down at the bank. Just reserved for, all kinds of things happen. There's disasters that happen in life. You could get sick. You could get laid off, right? I don't care how secure of a job you think you have. You need to have some sort of a buffer. Statistics show that the average person has less than 4 weeks worth of savings. So in other words, we got a whole lot of people in this country that if they were to lose their job and they'll be upside down, they'll be out in the street in about a month. All right, it's very scary. Um, I grew up very poor. I grew up very, very poor. My wife did too, so that's good. We're frugal, and one of the reasons that we don't want to go back to where we were, and it was tough. And so you've got to anticipate. Yes, bad things do happen to good people. All right, it's part of life. In this life, you're going to get two or three things that you probably didn't deserve that are good, windfalls, if you will, stroke of luck, God's blessing. And you're going to have two or three things that are not that good happen. Anticipate that in advance. All right. That this is the way life is. Two or three tragic things, two or three things that are just windfalls, but so that you're prepared. Don't just be, well, things are okay today. All right. You need to have a budget. You need to know where your money is going and stay within those parameters. Uh, I've done well in life, but we have a budget and we stick within that. And Terry, when she goes to Costco to buy, she knows there's a limit. That's that. Okay. And so it takes a little bit of some discipline and the like with budgeting. But again, very important. Try first step for investing or any of this other stuff. 6 months, safe money down at the bank in a money market fund. Okay. That's step one. All right. The next thing is then before we talk about investments, debt. Debt is very, very expensive. Okay. Right now, even with good credit, your interest rates are 14, 15% on a credit card. Okay. Home loans, they're pushing 8% right now. Those are actually very, very good rates of return versus any other investment we want to talk about. If you're when you're paying off a credit card, you're making 15. Some people are paying 21, 24% on their credit card. That's a fantastic rate of return. There are no investments that can make that kind of rate of return. Okay, even at 8% on a mortgage, that's an excellent rate of return. Now, here's the thing: there's no risk. It's a guaranteed rate of return, tax free, paying off debt. So I advocate that start paying down on that debt because it's the best investment you can ever make in your life is paying down that debt. Boy, it feels good when the day comes that you're free and clear. All right, it really does.
Yeah,
So
I know some people that have gotten into trouble with credit cards. Young people, Bill, they just kind of didn't understand that when you don't pay off that credit card bill the next month, you're paying actually more than it cost, to buy whatever you were buying. You got any suggestions for people with credit cards?
don't ever carry a balance. If you can't have, if you don't have the cash in hand, all right, don't buy it. Just simply don't. You have to ask yourself, do I really need this? We live in a society, down the road here, they're building another storage center. Those self-storage things. It's like a growth industry. People buy so much junk and little gizmos and gadgets. And uh, you got to ask yourself the hard question: do I need this? That's right, exactly. Comment here says, buy only what you need, and you need a lot less than you think. All right, and there was a book came out a number of years ago. It was called The Age of Envy. The Age of Envy. We live in an age of envy. The whole idea of keeping up with the Joneses, or it goes on at church too. I remember 30 years ago, Terry and I would go to church, and here's this couple. They had a brand new Mercedes, and they had laptop computers. And that was really a status symbol back in the time. And she's wearing a fur, and they were about our age. And we're like, what are we doing wrong? Like, no, nothing. We were doing everything right. Okay. And you can't be looking around and saying, oh, they've got this, they've got that. I've known people that have the house on the hill with all the fancy cars and everything, private plane, a whole bit. And as far as cash flow is concerned, as far as their net worth, it was like near zero. Okay. So don't be deceived by looking around. All right.
Gotcha. Hey, Bill, there's a question. I'm sorry to interrupt you. We'll get right back to where you're going, but Life Lessons asked this question. I'm not sure I understand it, but maybe you do. Do you get that question, Bill?
Sure. And I agree with that 100%. Of course,
What are they asking there?
well, we have our obligations to God, right? For sure.
Okay.
But then paying yourself first is that you make sure that within your budget, there's an element in there for savings. Okay. And
Okay.
so once you pay down your debt, all right, it should be debt free. Once you pay that down, you've got to pay yourself. And in order to have enough money to retire, okay, for whatever income level you're at, you need to be saving about, yeah, I agree. I said that, Blake. I agree 100%. But then after that, you've got to take care of yourself and your family, and pay yourself first. So your savings and retirement plan and that type of thing, you need to be getting
Okay.
into that.
Okay. I get what you're saying. So
You don't
what I
say,
think.
well, okay, we're going to take a vacation, or I'm going to buy this or buy that. Oh, do I have anything left over at the end of the month? Okay, I got $26. I'll put it in my 401k. No, you don't do it that way. That
Okay.
expense comes first after you've paid down debt. Okay, is without a doubt, pay yourself first and make it automatic. I recommend for people that have a plan at work, for instance, and we'll talk a little bit more about 401ks and all that down the road here. Make sure it's an automatic deduct to where it's not
Right.
discretionary. In other words, so you never see it pass through your greedy little hands. So
Okay.
that's what
I
I do.
think I understand where Life Lessons was coming from, where when you get your payment from work or whatever it is, you've already got it set up that you're going to put this much into your 401k plan. You don't touch it. It just automatically goes there. And again, to Blake's point, of course, we aren't saying that you aren't tithing. And again, people can tithe in different ways. It's up to them, because the Bible was not written at a time when all of these taxes are out there from the various governments we're under. So you've got to determine what that 10% is for you. Would you agree with that, Bill?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, listen, there are we'll call them semi-socialist countries where the tax rates rapidly get up to 50, 60%. All right, down in New Zealand and Australia or Norway and that type of thing. If you were to tithe on gross, for instance, you're going to be underwater pretty quick. But so here's the thing when it comes to giving of this sort. God is not fooled. All right, God is not fooled at all. He knows your heart. He knows where. Certainly, the gospel work in our Christian walk is number one, more important than any temporal success. But Blake asks, he goes, "Is it a sin to be rich?" No, it's not wrong for a Christian to be rich. Okay. I think it's again, in the age of envy that we live in, I think a lot of wealthy people shove their wealth in people's faces. Okay. I think the test becomes, can you maintain your humility while you have money? Warren Buffett is an interesting case. Now, I don't like the man and his political stances, but he lives in the same house he bought in 1955, little 3-bedroom brick. This is one of the richest men in the world. Okay, and his favorite place to eat. They own Dairy Queen. He likes going to Dairy Queen. He's 93. He still drives his own car, and very humble man as far as we'll call lifestyle. And I think it's a good example of that. And he does donate a lot of money to a lot of different causes. So, but you could be, what they call a pig millionaire. Yeah, absolutely. You don't do that. You don't do that. You've got to stay humble with your blessings, and your blessings are to be used for uh, furthering God's will in your life and in others. All right. If you use wealth because you want to have people worship you, watch out. Uh, the sign of a great person, in my opinion, I've seen this in both ways, is how do they treat the help? How do they treat the little lady cleaning the rooms down at the hotel, or the waitress and all that? If you're the sign of a great person is they're very, very cordial, friendly, and not condescending to the people that are serving them in their life, whether it's their staff at their business or out in public and that type of thing. And so I've seen wealth corrupt people, and they get full of it. I don't know how else to put it. So that can be a test too. Well, riches can be a test.
Yeah.
Poverty is a test. Solomon said, he goes, I pray that I be not so wealthy that I oppress others, and that I not be so poor that I steal. Okay. So
Uh-huh.
something like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's tests on either end of the spectrum there.
There
So
are.
yeah.
There
Hey, a
are.
couple more questions. You're bringing questions to me, Phil.
Okay.
Sidfried says, with the problems in the banking industry, and again, we had some big banks just fall apart in the last year.
Yeah.
That was an issue. It came up here in the United States. We had some major banks that failed, caused some concern among some people. But do you think you should be leaving large sums of money at home? What are your thoughts on that?
You know, banks are insured by the government up to $250,000 per account. And if you're a
Right.
husband and wife, that means you're covered for $500,000. And I feel quite comfortable with banks for the most part. Okay. Nobody lost a penny when those banks failed this spring.
Right. That's right.
Nobody did. And even back in 2008, everything was made whole too.
Yeah.
Uh, the
And
thing
that was a worse situation than
way
just
worse.
the last year. Yeah.
Thousands of small banks went under. The thing is, when it comes to keeping cash, we'll call this in preparation. Uh, you want to have money for savings and all that, like I mentioned before. But it's not a bad idea to have a little bit of cash, maybe $1,000 or so in cash, just in case there was civil disorder or a giant earthquake or something like that. So that, in other words, we'll call that in a degree for prepping, if you will. It makes sense to have. I don't know how to prepare for the end of the world, folks. I don't. And I've been asked this question many, many times in regards to gold, silver, and things too. Uh, the only place to prepare for the end of the world is on your knees, right? Pray always that you be accounted worthy to escape all things. However, praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. That was an old saying in World War One, right? Are the things we should do that's our part that God would expect us to do? The answer is yes. So having $500, $700 in cash hidden away in a safe, very safe place, or in a safe in your house, probably not an unwise thing there, along with a little bit of some water access or storage, some food supply and that type of thing, so that you can last maybe 6 weeks in case there was just, again, some kind of a hurricane or earthquake or who knows what. These things do happen in life and the like. And so I'm not against that idea. But stuffing the mattress with cash, well, cash doesn't even earn any money either. It's depreciating with inflation. And even at 3% inflation, your money's worth half in purchasing power within 24 years. So there's a security issue. What if there's a fire? What if there's a robber? All right. So, I mean, I would not go putting the family fortune in the mattress, proverbially.
Gotcha.
Not do
Well,
that.
another question, Bill. Virtual currency. It's a big topic today. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't like cryptocurrency. I
Okay.
don't. It's kind of a tulip mania, and it's a greater fool theory. In other words, okay, well, I'll buy it, and hopefully somebody will buy it from me at a higher price, right? And you got to realize it has no intrinsic value. It exists in the ether. Okay, uh, at least gold and silver have economic uses. All right, if you want to go down that line, and even paper money has what's called the full faith and credit of the United States. Don't discount that. That's pretty powerful stuff. They got nuclear bombs. They have B-52s. Okay, they own trillions of dollars of raw land and buildings and whatnot. So there's something there. Albeit, yes, there's issues. I understand that. Right? I understand there's issues with our budget system for the government, but there's something there. But here's what's going to be happening. I guarantee you. I follow this every day. The Federal Reserve is working right now, on what's called a CBDC, crypto type of currency, digital currency. It's in the works. It is coming. I assure you it's coming. It's about 2 or 3 years out. The whole cryptocurrency thing now, Bitcoin on it, maybe almost is like a beta testing for it. But you do realize that right now, 95% of all the float of currency of the US dollars doesn't really exist in paper money. It's on digital already. And when you're using credit cards or bank transfers and all that, they know who you are. Okay, right? And so it may become more formalized. We can get into the debate. Is that part of the beast system or something like that? Well, it could be. It could be. I'd be aware of that. I do watch that carefully, but it's coming. I guarantee it's coming. And I read these not from far right press or something, literally from releases from the Federal Reserve Bank. And so it's in the works and it's coming. So I'm not super happy about the whole idea because I can see where it might go a direction that we don't like in terms of global governance and the beast and that type of thing. At least it could be a little step in the process. And so anything that's working towards that, I'm not happy about.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Very good.
any other questions or I'll move on?
Go ahead. You can move on. Yeah.
All right. So we've paid off our debt, we've saved up our savings for reserve and that type of thing. What's next? Okay. We have a budget. And so the next thing is most people have at work, many people do, what's called a 401k plan. Okay. That's a retirement plan. And your money gets to grow tax deferred all the way up until age 59 and a half, and even longer if you want to keep working or not use it. And what's really neat about a 401k is nearly all of them have what's called matching, some kind of matching, up to 6%. Usually, it's the typical 6% of your pay. So they will match that 100% free money. Hey, I like the way that sounds. You know what? So again, I told you I grew up poor. On recess as a kid, I used to go and walk the sand traps looking for money. Okay, that's how I used to do. Other kids are playing dodgeball, and man, I'm working the sand traps looking for lost lunch money. Okay, and so when it's free money, I get turned on. Heck, we don't do recycling here in Montana. They don't pay for cans and that. But when we lived in California, man, I was getting cans, picking up cans, and even it didn't matter how much I was making. I can't. If it's free, I want it. We'd have a little trash can with aluminum cans and plastic bottles and all that. And free money, that rings with me, man. Believe me, it does. And so it resonates. And so your employer will give a matching up to 6% of your salary in a 401k plan. So, okay, so you put in $6,000 They give you $6,000. You
Yeah.
double your money
Wow.
and no risk. See, I'm into risk management. In our management programs, we're into risk management. And if anybody's listening, write this down. This is the takeaway of the day. You ready? It's not in how to be successful in everything, including money. It's not how much you make, it's what you don't lose. It was like, how much are you going to make? How much? No, no, wrong question, folks. Wrong question. The right question to ask: how much risk is there? How much can I lose? All right. And if avoiding loss, doesn't sound very sexy, right? But avoiding loss is actually 70% of the game. The gains will take care of themselves. Watch out for the traps and watch out for the losses and manage risk. So here we have an employer who's willing to double the amount you contribute risk free. Just like we said earlier about paying down the credit cards, that's risk free. You make that rate of return guaranteed. And those rates of return are oftentimes better than you would ever get in the stock market over time, or bonds, or gold, or anything else. So, yeah, hey, music to my ears, risk free. So get into your plan at work and use it and fund it as much as you're allowed to do. I highly recommend that.
Gotcha, gotcha. We got another question here about credit scores and are they important? Does it matter what your credit score is? What are your thoughts there, Bill?
Do you know it's very credit scores are very, very important. Okay. We're going into things where there's going to be social scores, kind of like China does that now. You get too many traffic tickets or your social score drops. You're saying bad things against the government, your social score drops. Well, we have this FICO system where you get a credit rating. So let me just say this way: it is very expensive to be poor. It's way less expensive to have money. It's very expensive to be poor. So if you have a bad credit score, guess what? You're paying more interest rates. Lenders view you as higher risk, and so therefore they charge a higher interest rate to you to compensate for that risk. All right.
So if you're buying a house, you're saying, and you've got a low credit score, the bank might say, "We're going to make your interest rate on this house a little bit more." Is
Sure.
that?
Maybe
Oh,
9%,
wow. Okay.
10%. Car loans, same thing. Uh, Here's the thing that's interesting: more and more employers are checking your FICO score. See, they check your criminal background and that line, drug testing and everything, but they check FICO scores because, like, hey, how can I have him manage my department? The guy can't even manage his own household. All
I
right.
tell I tell you what, I worked at the Central Intelligence Agency for many years, and what they started to do after a while, when we had some cases like Aldrich Ames, who was selling secrets to the Soviets, he had some issues with money, and that's something they began to look at of their employees was, are they having any financial issues? Especially with government agencies today, they're really looking at that for their employees. And so
Yeah.
if you're coming into one of those organizations or you want to work for at least the government, the federal government, they're keeping that in mind. Like, hey, what's going on with their finances here? You know,
Because you are potentially bribable. Okay.
right?
They also employers and all that want to make sure. Do you have anything that you can be blackmailed about? All right, or do you have some sort of secret liaisons or affairs or whatever it is, illicit activities? It's looked at because you're higher risk, and so yeah, absolutely, you want to have that FICO score be as high as possible, and the like, because it will follow you around. And in the digital age, there's no going out west and starting over. Okay. They don't know who you are. You change your name, and that's you can do that not that long ago. No, your digital trail will follow you for the rest of your life. So guard that with your life, and be very careful what you put on the internet in any way, shape, or form, because it's out there and it can't be erased. So indeed, watch that FICO score, work on that, check it. My bank gives you your FICO score free of charge. Whenever you log in, you can look at it. So pay attention to that because you want to make sure people are not impersonating you or using your credit or something like that as well. So again, very, very important things. But let's see. So we talked about 401k matching plans. If you're in a fortunate enough situation that you're maxing out your 401k, you can also have an IRA. Or let's say your employer does not have a plan. You can have a personal IRA. And depending on your age, it could be anywhere from $6,500 to $7,500 a year that you can contribute to an IRA. And guess what? That money grows tax deferred. And there's different types of IRAs, Roth IRA and regular IRAs. And I don't want to get too complex here. So you can read about that online. But here's the thing. Let's say you have a non-working spouse. Okay. Can they have an IRA? Absolutely. As long as, let's say you're going to fund it for $5,000 for each. As long as you have wages of $10,000 or more, you can have an IRA even for your non-working spouse. And so that makes sense. Use the IRA. It's a wonderful vehicle. With a Roth IRA, you don't get a tax deduction up front. Oh, by the way, 401ks and regular IRAs, that's tax deductible. You don't pay taxes on that money on the way in. That's great. And all those years it's compounding, you don't pay on that until you withdraw. A Roth IRA, you don't get a deduction now, but when you take all that money out down the road, no taxes. And so there's an important point I want to make. 40% of this whole investment thing is tax management. You've got to have an eye on tax management. All right. Who cares if you gain the world if you got to pay 99.9999% of it in taxes? The Beatles had a song like that about taxation. It's one for me and nine for them is the way the words went, tax man.
Oh, yeah.
So you got to have a situation where you have deferred taxation as much as possible. Your own residential property is a great thing that way because you don't pay taxes on it as you go. Now they're trying to work on stuff like that. Well, I'm very much against that. We're going to do a wealth tax. What if it's an illiquid thing like a farm? What do you got to sell off a few acres or something? But tax deferral, having an eye about taxes. And what are your tax brackets? It's important to know those things.
So when you're talking about tax deferral, let's say you've saved up in a 401k or an IRA, and you're going to start taking some of that funding now in your retirement years. You don't want to get it all out at once, right? Because that's going to be a bigger tax burden on you, right?
Right. Well, you know what? There's again, knowing the tax brackets. A married couple is only in the 12% tax bracket up to about 70,000 or so. If you take out, let's say you have $500,000 or $1 million in your 401k or IRA, and you take it all at once, guess what? You're all of a sudden in the highest possible tax bracket. You'll be paying upwards of 50% between state and federal on your withdrawal rate. So you want to manage your withdrawal rates. In fact, here's the thing. Here's the formula. I'll bring this in at this point. How much can you safely withdraw from your retirement accounts so that it perpetuates for your entire lifetime, remainder of life, and for you and your spouse? And the studies show that it's about a 4% withdrawal rate. That's about what your portfolio can sustain. So if you have $1 million in your retirement account, you can take about $40,000 out. I do get debates with clients. They want to go on, we're going to buy that $200,000 RV we've been looking forward to, and they have $1 million. I go, that'd be a big mistake. You're telling me, Bill, that I can only take 40,000, maybe 50,000 at most, out of $1 million in a year? Yeah, that's right. Unless you want to be working at McDonald's when you're 92, that's what you're going to have to be, to live with. So whatever amount of money that you're going to need beyond Social Security, you need to have 25 times that amount. So if you need 50,000 a year to live on, you need to be thinking on, how do I get up to about $1.25 million? $1 million ain't what it used to be. I'll tell you that much, right? It really doesn't. It really isn't. And so you got to be thinking, hey, I've got to think about, how do I get to $1 million or $2 million? And that means you better start young. The power of compound interest is a miracle. It really is. Small amounts, even $10,000 or $20,000 at age 20, at a 10.
Bill, since compound interest is so important, can you just give a quick primer for maybe folks who are going to view this or maybe younger and that haven't understood this concept, just how that works?
Well, the rule of 72, divide the rate of return into the number 72 tells you how many years it takes to double your money. So historically, take stocks, broad indexes like the S&P 500, which I highly recommend. Rates of return since about 1900 has been around 10% a year. So your money doubles every 7 years, okay? And over a work career of 50 years, that's 7 doublings. A lot of things happen. Let's say you started with just $20,000, and we double it 7 times over a 50-year career from age 18. Let's do 20,000. That'd be 40, 80, 160, 320, 640, 1.28, 2.56, $2.5 million. So if you're a young person, instead of blowing money at some college, we're out partying and goofing around. Go to junior college and take that money and just put it in an index fund. You'll have, just on a one-shot basis, $2.5 million by the time you're in your mid-60s. Okay, that's the miracle of compound interest. 20,000 growing to 2.5 million by just simply buying and holding an index fund and leaving it alone, and don't get in there borrowing it, or goofing around with it. So that's the miracle of compound interest, is that doublings. There's an old saying that, you ever hear the story of the chessboard, where, okay, a guy made a compact with the king, and he said, how much, do you want? He goes, well, on the first square of a chessboard, there's 64 squares. I just want 1 grain of rice on the first square. And on the second square, I just want 2 grains of rice.
Yeah.
Third would be 4 and all that. And the king goes, well, that's a great deal. I'll take it. I was going to offer you $1 million, but I'll take that deal. The truth is, by the time you hit square 64, you have something like more rice than's ever been produced in the history of man. It's
Wow, just with 64 squares.
It's 2 to the 64th power. It's a huge
Wow, yeah, that's right.
right. And so again, how do you manage small amounts multiplies, okay, with time. It's an incredible thing. Okay. So it may not seem like a lot. I've had clients that have opened up small accounts, and it's $10,000, $15,000. And I say, listen, just don't touch it. Leave it there for your career, and we'll manage it wisely. Something, I want a new car, boom, and it's gone. They rob themselves. People rob themselves all the time, and I've seen it over and over again. It's sad, but when you realize, my kids get mad at me because they'll order a shake or something at the burger place, and I'll say, hey, that shake's worth $97 30 years from now. Thanks, Dad, for spoiling my milkshake, right?
But you're hitting on something there, Bill, because sometimes we'll buy whatever buy this drink or get this snack over here, and over a month's time, if you look at that, if you're budgeting and you see, wow, that was $50 this month, for that type of thing. If you look at that through a year and then say, hey, if I put all that money in savings for a year or two, or and compound interest on that, yeah, it adds up.
You could fund a retirement if you're buying a $5 Starbucks every day at work, right? It's 250 work days a year, 1,250 dollars a year, and you start at age 18 doing that. You could actually fund a very nice retirement with that Starbucks drink. Okay, so again, it's important. Little things matter, and the leverage of compound interest. So I see that we're working towards the top of the hour. I want to move to a different topic here.
Sure.
Let's talk about investments a little bit.
Okay.
One thing I've seen, again, dealing with thousands of people over the years, is unrealistic expectations of returns. Okay. Investing is not gambling. Investing is not guessing. Investing is not going and Oh yeah, Lotto is not a good retirement plan. By the way, I played the Lotto maybe once every 3 years when it hits like $5 billion. And I've tried this. I said, "Okay, God, I'll give half of it to you, half of it to you. I'll make this Faustian deal with God, right?" And I never get even one number, not even a number, out of the six. So God does not work that negotiation. I'm just here to tell you, I've tried it, but despite the fact that I promised I would use all that money for good things, but nonetheless, what are reasonable rates of return? I do believe you should have diversified investments like mutual funds, index funds like the S&P 500, which are the 500 largest companies in the United States. Uh, Very broad based. Don't be buying an individual stock, some stock pick you heard at the golf course from your uncle or some guy at work. Man, this is the next hot thing. Blah blah blah. That's gambling. Just go to Las Vegas. Probably even more fun to do it that way. Put it on red and see what happens.
Because when you're talking about like the S&P or the Vanguard fund or something like that, they're using just so many stocks that you're kind of protected
Right.
because hey,
Right.
if the whole economy went,
There's,
maybe the second coming is here. So we
there's
don't have
some
to worry at that.
some companies are going to go broke. Some of them are going to be like Amazon or Apple or something like that. Okay, the scriptures speak about diversification of a wise counsel and diversification. Don't put all your eggs in one basket and all that. So using an index fund is definitely the way to do it. And they're cheap, and you use no load. You don't want to be paying commissions or any of this other nonsense. Not necessary. Okay, but rates of return historically. Okay, they're humbler than you think. If you're out there, well, I think I want to make 100% a year. It won't happen. It doesn't happen. Okay. Historical rates of return for index funds, stock funds, about 10% a year over time. We'll use any rolling 30-year period. It has, um, short term, it could be down half. But if you're willing to hang in there over time, we'll call it rolling 30-year periods of time through world wars, depressions, and 9/11, and you name it, it shakes out, it'll be around 10% a year. How about bonds? It's about 6%. They're a little safer. They're not as volatile, but they don't pay as much. So
So
there's
what is it again? I think a lot of people understand what a stock is, but can you explain a bond like? Because
well,
I've always had trouble with that.
companies need to borrow money, okay, and
Okay.
finance thing. It doesn't mean they're in trouble or something, but they want to finance inventory or expansion and that type of thing. So they issue a bond. And they have ratings, and some of them are AAA rated. Big company like IBM or you know Kimberly Clark or whoever, Corning and the like. They'll issue bonds to finance inventory and all that. They pay an interest rate, and that tends to be a little higher than what you're going to get from the bank. And so that's about historically been around 6% a year on that. How about precious metals? A lot of people I've noticed in the church, there's something about gold, and silver, and that kind of stuff, or we'll call alternative investments. It gets them excited. And by the way, I'm an expert. I'm an expert on gold and silver. Uh, I was a numismatist once upon a time in a day, coin collecting and that type of thing. My dad and I used to go to auctions and bid boards and all kinds of things, currency trading, uh, Pacific Stock Exchange when I was a kid. That's what got my interest into all this. And the rate of return is much less than you think. So we know gold was $20 an ounce way back in 1900. It's about $2,000 an ounce now. That sounds like a good rate of return until you put a calculator on it. And it's only about 3% a year, about the same as the inflation rate has been. So a $20 1 ounce gold piece, it bought a very, very good top of the line suit in 1900. Today in 2024, it will still buy you a top of the line best suit in town. But that's it. Didn't really make a real gain. Okay. A silver's even done less than that. Uh,
Hmm.
it's not a good investment.
So
Okay.
all those commercials you see out there on investing in gold and silver, are they pushing the idea that people have concerns about the economy as a whole, that it'll crash at some point with all this debt, and then the only thing that's really going to be of some value is precious metals. Is that where those folks are coming from?
Here's what you have to ask. Here's what you have to ask. They're going to take your worthless paper dollars and they're going to give you this very valuable gold. Why are they doing that? If it's going to go up so much and be so valuable, why are they even selling it? That doesn't make any sense, does it? You'd figure, hang on to it. Now, look, I'm not against people, again, for disaster hedge, end of the world, whatever you want to call it. If they put 1% of their net worth in some gold coins or something and bury them in the backyard, okay. I don't personally do that. I don't. Because let me tell you, there's a danger. You realize the United States government confiscated gold in 1933. They actually confiscated the gold and then they revalued it once they had it in their hands. Okay, the United States government. It was against the law to own gold. You had to turn it in for paper currency.
Wow. Wow. What was that? What was the reasoning behind
Well,
that?
the government was basically broke. Okay, so they gave everybody $20 for their
This
20
is at the Depression time.
right in
Okay.
1933, right after Franklin Roosevelt did the banking holiday. Banks were failing and all that, so you had to turn in your gold coins. Let's say a $20 1 ounce gold piece, and they gave you $20 in paper. Once the government had that all, and by the way, you could go to jail for not doing it. Yeah, there was exceptions for your wedding ring, that kind of thing, but gold bullion had to be turned in. So once they had all this gold in, then they revalued the gold to $35 an ounce. So instantly, the Treasury had more money, okay, for all the great works programs of
Wow.
Franklin
Wow.
Roosevelt. So, hey, Ken, in Nazi Germany, if they caught you holding gold, you got shot. In fact, if they caught you hoarding coal or wheat or any of these survival things, you got shot for that too. So you got to be very, very careful with this as it stands. If we're talking about some sort of barter economy and a Machiavellian end of the world situation, have a bag of what I call junk silver coins. Those are coins made before 1964, quarters, dimes, and halves, and they're made out of 90% silver. But what do you think is going to happen? You're going to be going down the local swap down there with a $20 gold piece or 1 ounce gold coin and try
Yeah.
a loaf of bread. You
No,
know,
you're right. You're
you
right. I wonder. I'm not against people prepping. People, that's up to them. They can make that decision. If it's coming down, I mean, you got to have your trust in God. If you die, if you lose your life, you lose your life. You know what's coming.
I agree, but pragmatically, what would you be using that? What would you be buying with gold or silver? That's what's really valuable. Have that ahead of time. I don't care if it's tools or spark plugs or water or whiskey or probably cigarettes will go to the moon. That stuff will go up way faster than any gold and silver will. So again, it'll be very dangerous times. I don't want to. I don't like that of thinking. Here's grandma with a 1 ounce gold coin trying to buy some bread down at the from the hooligans down at the black market. Uh, think about what you would be buying at the black market, okay, and what you would have. That makes more sense to me anyway. Again, it's difficult thinking about Machiavellian end of the world situations and all that. But again, maybe a little bit of some junk silver. It's easily recognizable. Everybody knows what a silver quarter looks like or a silver dime. Okay.
Gotcha.
And,
Gotcha. Hey,
uh,
we're running out of time, Bill. So don't worry, we're going to bring you back. But I got a couple questions over here. I was wondering if you might be able to deal with them. What is your opinion on penny stocks? I've heard that term before, but I don't understand what it means exactly.
these are stocks that don't trade on major exchange. They trade for less than $5 a share. They don't have good reporting, that kind of thing. They trade on what's called the pink sheets. Uh, Almost all of them are scams. Uh, the compound rate of return for penny stocks in total is about negative 24% a year. All right. I'd stay away from that. They're pump and dump schemes, a lot of mafia involved with that. Uh, just stay away. It's just not good. I do want to say, oh, by the way, Sarah, here's simple investment advice for those of you that have a 401k or an IRA. Most plans have what's called target date mutual funds. and they'll have a date like 2035 or 2040 or 2060, target 2060. So you pick the year that you want to retire. Just put your money there. Okay. And what they'll do is every year they'll reduce the amount of risk. There'll be more safe bonds and a little less stocks, so that by the time you're retired, you'll be about 50-50, 50% equity, 50% bonds. And they'll do it for you, and they do it for free. Okay. Now, there's better ways of doing that. I do that as a business, right? But we'll call it for the amateur by the seat of the pants. I don't want to think too hard on this. This is the best way to do it. Use the target date mutual funds that are in your 401k plan, and just put the money there and don't mess with it. Okay. That is really the simple advice there that I can give to anyone. Use those target date funds. Again, they're in almost every 401k plan that I've looked at.
I think some of them are called life cycle funds
Yeah,
or
exactly.
something.
Same thing.
Uh-huh.
Target date, life cycle, and
Gotcha.
you pick the year that you're going to want to retire, and then they will adjust the risk measurements in there uh, as time moves along. And so
Hey,
that's
hey,
good.
Bill, quick question, life lessons, talking about the current administration's goal to tax unrealized gains. Again, I know that's just talk. So again, you got to get everybody in Congress to vote on these things. But what are your thoughts on that happening?
Well, that's just plain out stealing confiscation. What it is? It's the idea that all these rich people have this stuff, and they're not paying taxes on it, right? Until they die or whatever. Uh, let's say I'm here in Montana. I know ranchers that own 10,000, 20,000 acres. Okay, they've had it in a family for 120 years. Okay, the unrealized gain is like, oh, you've made money on this. It's worth $30 million. Okay, you need to pay 2% of that every year. But here's what the rancher will say. He goes, we don't hardly make money at all on the cattle, right? We hardly break even. What, I got to cough up $600,000 now? How will I do that? It's not like it's liquid. It's not, and then you have to have appraisals for the assets. It'll be a mess.
Wow.
They've tried this in other countries. It's always failed. Okay, and again, what you're going to force family businesses to sell off uh, undivisible land, for instance, or how about a business? I own 20 service stations. Okay, what I got to sell off a service station to be able to pay the unrealized gains. I'm against it. I think it's unconstitutional, by the way. I don't think it will hold up in the courts and all that.
Yeah, that sounds crazy, man. I didn't understand the details of that.
The
Yeah.
government is starving. They're running ridiculous deficits. We all know that, right? Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, we all know things are out of control. So they're looking around for whatever way they can to shake the system down and all that. But uh, you could take all the capital, that what they call the 1%. You can take all of it, all of it. It would not even come close to balancing the budget. Okay,
Wow.
that's how bad off we are financially in the country with mismanagement. Government needs to follow Bill Lusenheid's advice. It needs to have a budget. It needs to have savings. Okay,
Yeah.
all right. It's like a wanton teenager with a high limit credit card. Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
gotta
and
grow up.
that
Grow.
so
Hey, folks in Congress, grow up. Okay.
yeah, we got to end pretty soon, Bill. But let me just ask you to that point. This continual deficit that's going into the trillions of dollars now. And I think the reason that they do that is they think that everybody trusts the United States, that the United States is the best economic bet you can make. But isn't the world trying to move away from the dollar now? Aren't there countries that are setting up other systems that they're hoping other countries will become a part of? And couldn't that lead to a lot of issues for the U.S. At some point?
No, no.
Okay.
There's been consortiums tried in the past. If you remember OPEC, right? And it takes a lot of trust to have that kind of consortium. What will happen is they start selling stuff in the black market. That's messed up OPEC. Plus, they weren't meeting the quotas and they were selling it in black. Right? Anybody who's out there, and I know a lot of people in the church think, "Oh, the dollar is going to collapse." right now, what is the strongest currency in the world? It is the United States dollar. Okay.
Right. Right now.
I agree. I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
The question is then, oh, but there's all these problems. Absolutely. But we're a dirty shirt, but we are the least dirty shirt in the entire laundry basket. Okay. Other countries are doing worse than us. All right. I don't care if it's India or China or Japan is way worse. Russia, Europe, South America, they're doing all the same things and worse than we are. But here's the thing. So I've penciled this out. We have about $100 trillion in what we'll call unfunded liabilities in the United States. That's counting future responsibilities to veterans and Social Security and you name it. What is the net worth of the United States? And you got to kind of ballpark this, but if you count all the assets that we have, the oil in the ground, the minerals in the ground, and all that the United States owns, I don't mean private hands, I mean government land, all right, and all the buildings and material and the planes and you name it. It's about $150 trillion. We actually have a positive net worth still. Let's get it in gear and work on this. But as long as there's financing, Mexico to mess with this, they're issuing 100-year bonds now, 100-year. Okay, so they're kicking the can down the road. All right, and we'll probably do the same thing. We're going to always be fighting against inflation because of this. We're trying to kick the can down the road as long as there's debt financing. But we are the strongest military. We are the strongest currency. We are the number one. It's fading fast, but our judicial system is still the most honest and best legal system in the world. And
Right.
I say that tongue in cheek because it's a mess.
Yeah.
It's not where it should be at all, for sure. But all those things have tremendous value for now. Is it eroding? Yes. Okay. Do we need to put a stop to this? Answer yes. But you got to ask yourself, well, there's only one planet. Where else would you want to be? I would not want to be in any other country or use any other currency than the United States.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Oh, there's
No,
nowhere to
no
run.
doubt about
Nowhere
it.
to run, folks. Nowhere to run.
But things can change, right? I mean, we could have
Well, but what's
a
the alternative? What's the alternative? You know,
right, right. No doubt about it. A tsunami could hit the West Coast, and so there's
I
things
moved
could happen. Yeah.
I moved to Montana. It's a beautiful, great place, the treasure state. We have issues here too. Okay, so I've said, okay, I gotta stand and fight right here because there's nowhere else to go. Right? If you're out in the backwoods of Montana, uh, now what? Well, I'm not moving to
Right.
the I'm not moving to the okay. So
Yeah. Yeah. I'm close to LA, so whatever's going down, man, I'm in trouble here.
no, no, no.
Okay.
Now, I lived there for almost 60 years, Mike. So I know you're the. By the way, where you live, Mike, once upon a time, that was all dairy and open land. Once you hit Hacienda Heights, that was it. You were all
Wow.
grapevines and dairy farms. It was beautiful. And I would get lost trying to find your house. I think you lived near Fontana or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would get lost trying to find your house. But that once upon a time, it was a beautiful place. Not so much anymore.
Gotcha. Hey, listen, Bill, we're out of time, but I really appreciate you hitting a lot of these questions that folks had a lot of questions on this financial stuff, and so we're going to bring you back to deal with this again, and we'll get to more questions. And I know there's a lot more you could discuss on this, but any final closing thoughts?
Well, I was just scanning the questions here, there. Um,
40-year home mortgage. Well,
yeah,
I've never heard of that.
they do exist actually. Uh,
Okay.
the and I'll just close with this. I don't want people to be too scared. We, as Christians, we need to stay as optimists. We have God on our side. We have the wisdom of the Bible. Okay, we can stand while 1,000 fall on either side. Okay, and yes, times do look scary in a lot of things. Uh, Somebody's asking about Medicare and Social Security. There will be something there. If they were to put some fixes in right now, okay, it can be fixed. But again, so many of our people are older and relying on Social Security. Okay, uh, even if they don't fix it, there's still 75% of what the promised amount is there for ad infinitum. Okay. So it's not like, oh man, it'll be a day will come and your social security check won't show up. It may be reduced. Okay. I'm not saying that can't happen, but there'll be something. So anybody who's trying to say, oh, there'll be nothing. There'll be no Medicare. There'll be no social security. There'll be something. All right. So count on that and all that and prepare now. Have a hobby business or something like that. Just be thinking. I'm a chess player. So in chess, you think 2 to 3 moves ahead. I think God wants us to be thinking ahead, 2 to 3 steps ahead, and not to worry, but simply have mental preparation, spiritual preparation, and the like. And realize, and I know we're closing here, He is the good shepherd. He will lead us into green valleys. I don't even know where those green valleys may be, all right? But He does. I'm just a dumb sheep. I can't look over the hill. I don't know what the map looks like, but He does. He will lead us into the green valleys. So do not let angst and worry and all of that bother you too much. Do your due diligence for sure, but trust in the good shepherd. He will lead us into green pastures.
That's a great way to end this discussion. Again, I'm more of a guy who looks at the glass as always half full than half empty. I know it's coming someday, but I know as long as my relationship is right with Jesus Christ, it doesn't matter what happens to me, my body. This life is going to end for all of us. So we always got to have that thought in mind looking forward. So thank you so much, Bill, for joining us on another edition of Prove All Things. We'll have you back in the near future. And thanks for all of you for joining us today and your questions. And we'll see you next week. We have a taped session next week, but please view it. It's a new one. So we'll see you again in 2 weeks live. Bye-bye.
So long, everybody.